Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of Coco and Adults. We're real people bringing you real reviews of all the latest streaming offerings on Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, HBO Max, Hulu. Did I leave anything out? Do not say home videos from the guy down the street.
I'm not going to do that because you'll yell at me.
Well, yeah. I'm not Daltz.
And I'm not Coco.
And not Coco, what are we reviewing today?
So today's exciting episode, listener, is going to be about the white tiger. And this is for a listener in India because we are huge in India. I think that listeners should know that we are, that actually India is our second most popular downloading destination.
That's because for anybody who is actually located in India or has friends or family in India, we are available on Ghana,
right?
Which is apparently the number one podcasting platform in India.
So this is for you, listener in India. We appreciate your business out there. We are talking about The White Tiger, as I mentioned, which is an adaptation on Netflix of an Aravind Adiga novel. It was an award-winning novel. And it's about the story of a poor villager who makes it big in the big city.
Not remotely close to Slumdog Millionaire.
No. It's the poor villager is played by Adarsh Gourav, very ably played by him, by the way. And he's from a very poor family. He comes to the big city and tries to make it big as a driver for a very wealthy family. And hijinks and shenanigans ensue. He's trying to be a loyal servant as is the expectation of his caste, his position in the caste, which is the lower caste or lower class. And he's trying to be just a loyal servant. And then the rich people, as is wont for some rich people to do, take advantage of his servitude. And it's essentially the story of a rags to riches kind of thing, because he narrates the story throughout, and we look back. He's looking back, and you can tell that he has made it big. He's running his own driving agency in the end of the movie. So he's looking back through writing a letter to the Chinese premier randomly, who is coming to visit India, and so he's telling the story of his life essentially.
Yeah.
So that's the summary. I'm not nearly as good at summaries as you are, so I've been studying for the last half hour.
You have not. Be quiet.
With the hopes that maybe I'll attain summary greatness like you have.
He's been reading the Cliff Notes version that was given to him by our crack research team.
Which is Cole's Notes in Canada, by the way.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
And so that's the story. Coco, I have a feeling that I know what you thought about this movie.
Oh, I know you think that.
Well, tell me. Tell me if I'm right or wrong.
So the reason Daltz thinks he knows my review of this movie is because I absolutely did not want to watch it. I haven't read the book upon which it's based. I did read the synopsis of what the movie is about, like on Netflix.com or whatever. I was thoroughly uninterested, and I have also read several interviews with Priyanka Chopra, who's one of the main characters in the book, and she seems pretty insufferable. So
She was on Baywatch, come on.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I was thoroughly uninterested, but I actually really liked it.
Oh, what? Okay, listener, I'm stunned.
Daltz has turned into Zac Efron, and he's like, mind blown!
Wow, I didn't even see that coming.
There was a lot going on, but in a good way. It was very multi-layered. It was very multifaceted. You obviously had the socioeconomic stuff with the castes, but you also had just class stuff with and culture clashes as well between Priyanka Chopra's character, who is Indian born but raised in America, coming to India, kind of clashing with this is the way things are always done. She actually treats Balram, who's the main character, he's the servant, the driver, she treats him pretty well for the most part. You also have family dynamics between Balram's family and also the family that he's driving for. There's a lot with family dynamics there that I could really go into as somebody who
has family,
has an incredibly dysfunctional family on one side of it. The music was banging, just on a totally superficial note. I loved the music.
Wow.
And Priyanka Chopra was not actually insufferable. And it also had and we can get into this more as well, but there were a lot of, it reminded me of a lot of different movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it reminded me of, like, The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Right.
It also reminded me of Parasite.
Right.
It also reminded me of, like, if The Social Network were honest about the characters that it's portraying and didn't try to irrationally redeem them in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it had a lot going on,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually really liked it. Like, especially when it took, like, a very dark turn, like about 2/3 of the way through the movie.
So listener, I'm so stunned. I was so expecting that Coco would not like this movie that I had my defense already, and now I'm flabbergasted. I don't really have any points to make because you made them all for me.
Well, no, go ahead and make your points. We can have a conversation.
The reviews have been mixed. I've read some extreme on either side, and I've also read some in the middle, so it's just all over the board. I will agree with a couple of the things that I read, and usually we don't read reviews before we go into these kinds of things, but I wanted to be more informed because I'm talking about something that I have no knowledge about,
right,
which is culture in India. I mean, I know as much as North Americans know, but I've never been to India, so I can't really say much in that regard. One of the things that I thought before I read this review, and I agree with the review, was it was a very simplistic view of religion, and it was almost like a talking down kind of movie to, like, it was very simple, and I had a hard time understanding who the movie was for. Was it for Indians? Was it for North Americans? Was it for Europeans? Was it for people who are looking to make a better name for themselves, better lives for themselves? So that confused me a little bit, but overall, like, I thought it was a great movie. I thought it was fantastic. I thought the drama was amazing. I thought the acting was amazing. I thought the characters felt real. Mm-hmm. The character Balram Halwai, who was the main character in the movie, the torture that he goes through inside is palpable. There's one scene where he goes outside after he's been betrayed by the family, and he just goes and hides in the bushes amongst all these condos around him in the rich areas of Delhi, and it was fantastic. I mean, it was really gripping, and it was really emotional, and it was believable. Like, I have never been to India, like I said, but there was so many great scenes where it was the poverty, the unbelievable depths of poverty, but also the unbelievable riches of heights of the riches there too, which you don't really associate with India from North America. You think it's really a lot of squalor there, but it is. It's a westernized country, and it's got a lot of commerce, and it's got people who are rich, and it's got people who are poor. So it was fantastic. I love these kinds of movies that we've been watching. A lot of these movies that have taken place in other countries, and they've been mainly crime movies, and this was not a crime movie that took place in another, and it gave me a really good perspective, I think, of another country.
There was crime in it, though.
It's not a crime
but
movie.
It's not a movie about crime.
It's not a crime thriller, I wouldn't say. I mean, there's definitely crime in it, and there are nefarious goings on and ne'er-do-wells involved, but it's mainly, this is a story about a guy going rags to riches, and I thought it was really great. I really enjoyed it. I agree with you about the music, and even things on that kind of level. Everything just really felt good. And it's really popular right now on Netflix. So I think a lot of people are watching it and embracing it, which I think is good, because we need these kinds of movies at this time to sort of remind us that the connections with people are not always great. Like we're missing the connections with people, and I think we miss sometimes that sometimes being away from people is a good thing, because you get connected with these people and they betray you and they take advantage of you, and we have to have a reminder of these kinds of things, I think.
Well, this is a movie that is perfect for the time that we find ourselves in right now, because Slumdog Millionaire was just basically a movie designed to make white people feel good and not have to think. Right? Like, you've got this kid who's poor, he's from the slums, but by gosh, he gets this chance on this game show and he wins millions of rupees, and now everything is great, and you can walk out of the theater and be like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And not have to think about any of the socioeconomic implications of, the caste system and the slums in India. But this movie, even though it takes place in India, like at the end, they very specifically draw a parallel to non-India countries, because Balram makes it big because of a pretty heinous crime that he commits. And at the very end, he looks straight into the camera and he says, this is just a paraphrase, but it's pretty accurate. The only way for poor people to lift themselves out of squalor is through crime or politics.
Right.
Is it that way in your country too? And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly the way it is in America.
Right.
Like the myth of bootstraps in America is exactly a myth designed to keep the 99% thinking that they just need to work harder or try harder or get a lucky break, and then they'll be like Jeff Bezos, instead of wondering, hey, why does the 1%, like why did Jeff Bezos make $13 billion in one day during a pandemic when I can't even get $600 from the government, you know, for like 8 months, and I can't afford to pay my rent or feed my kids or whatever. So this is exactly the movie for the times that we're in right now. And when I said that it's like an honest social network, like they didn't try to sugarcoat Balram and what he did.
Right.
Like you understand why he did what he did and why he felt that was the only way that he could not continue to be like a driver making, you know, 3 cents a day or whatever for the rest of his life. Like you completely understand why he did what he did, even though he did really heinous things.
Yep.
You know. But in the social network, like you watch Mark Zuckerberg now, and granted there's a lot of like the social network is not accurate on many levels.
It's a movie.
You know, it's a movie, but the way Mark Zuckerberg is depicted in that movie, he spends the entire 2 hours just screwing everybody over,
right,
left and right.
Right.
And he's, you know,
rewarded for it.
Yeah, he's rewarded for it. Like he's aggrieved, he's whiny, like he doesn't care if you're his friend or his business associate. He just has this naked lust, like for more money, more power, like he wants to be the most popular guy in the room. But at the end, because it's written by a white guy about a white guy, Aaron Sorkin has to throw in a line from the Rashida Jones character saying, "Oh, Mark, you're not really an asshole. You just need a friend." And I'm like, why would you do that? Like, there's nothing, the way this character is presented, there is nothing good or remotely redeemable about this character. He's just an asshole. And so this is, the White Tiger is like an honest social network. Like, Balram is not redeemed in the end. Like, you feel sympathy for what his character has gone through, and there's that line about, is it the same in your country? It's like, well, yeah, it is. And he did what he had to do to not live in poverty for the rest of his life, but there's not really any, like, redeeming, uplifting, make white people feel good message, you know?
This is a hard movie to watch in a lot of ways for people that are in North America, I think, and in Western countries, because of the poverty and because of it was a real reinforcement that slavery still does exist, even though I know that it still exists. But, indentured servitude is still out there. There's all sorts of ways that people are underappreciated and underemployed and abused and everything like that. And I knew that stuff, but watching a movie like this reinforces that and brings it back to, it personalizes it when you see a character like this guy going through what he went through. And
did you say that the review that you read, I did read one just very quick blurb that said this is like pretty much the most accurate depiction of the caste system in India, like ever, like written or put on film or whatever. So
yeah, and some of the reviews I've read, I'd be interested to read more reviews in terms of what the Delhi Times thinks of it. Something that's more local to the culture.
The Bangalore Gazette,
right? So like what Forbes thinks about it and what Rolling Stone thinks about it is, well, this is not. They're writing from a North American perspective, and of course, it's very enlightening from that perspective. But from a perspective of India, is that accurate? Is it an accurate movie? Is it an accurate depiction? I mean, it seemed pretty accurate to me, but what do I know?
Priyanka Chopra is a producer, and she's from India, so I think if this were a complete fantasy, she probably wouldn't have signed on.
That's
for
true.
It, so
there was one review I read that said that her character was very similar to her, is that she moved to New York and was raised in the United States and then went back for a period of time. So maybe there's a westernization that's been colored there for her and her perspective. Who knows? But I think that I definitely recommend it. It's one of those movies that the Sound of Metal that we watched and that I really enjoyed. It's one of those different kind of movies that it's not formulaic and it doesn't fit really into any kind of category, which is great because there's so many formulaic movies out there right now, especially on Netflix with the Extraction and all these, blow 'em up movies. That this is a different kind of movie, and you've got to commit to it, and you've got to realize that you're not going to be able to go and get some popcorn and come back. And there's subtitles. I mean, it's not an easy watch for casual listeners.
That was a cool thing too. Like they kind of flipped back and forth between English and what's the language in India?
I'm not sure.
Whatever the language is. I'm so sorry. I don't know that. But yeah, that was like even some sentences. They would be like, "Hey, how's it going?" And then they would like switch to a different language.
Which felt authentic to me.
Yeah,
that's probably
totally.
what they do. The drivers are all standing around making fun of each other, and they're probably giving each other crap in English and in their native language, and that's just the way it works. I mean, that's why drivers around the world are apparently universal in their abuse for one another.
You know what? I take it back. Maybe there was a bit of a redemption moment. So when Balram did what he did in order to ensure that he would not be a servant for the rest of his life, before he did that, his family had sent his nephew to live with him so he could teach his nephew how to be a driver so his nephew might make some good money as well. And when he left that night, he gave the nephew some money and said, "If I'm not back by the morning, you need to run," because he knew that his family would be killed after he did what he did. But then he's at the train station leaving Delhi for Bangalore, and he had like an attack of conscience, and he went back and he got his nephew and he took his nephew to Bangalore with him. So I guess that's a bit of a redemption moment, but it's not the specific, "Oh, Mark, you're not really an a-hole," like laying it out on the line for us, like, whatever. So
yeah, and what I liked about this movie too was the complication of the characters. So that you sort of implied that with what you just said, but like the son Ashok, who's played by Rajkumar Rao, very ably played by him. He's a complicated guy too, because he's from India, went to the States to get an education, then came back. He's got a very American accent, and you want to like him because he's like, don't hit the driver. What are you doing? Treat him like a human being. He's trying to be Western about it, but at the same time, he's still in that system. He's still raised within that system, and he's complicated. And there's some betrayal there in the story that he exacts that is heartbreaking in some ways. And to me, that was just like the lead character. Is not everybody's cut and dry. Not everybody is good and bad. I mean, we have our good moments and we have our bad moments, and that's what human life is. And that's what you're faced with certain things, and you make decisions at the time, and the best decision you hopefully at the time. So that was part of this appeal to me too. No matter where the setting was for this movie, is that the characters were complicated and real and felt really authentic to me.
Yeah, totally. I enjoyed it.
So what's your rate? What's your grade, I should say?
I would give it like a B+.
Would you really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A B+, maybe even an A-.
Yeah, I would give it probably a 7.5 out of 10.
Wow.
I think it was really good. It's one of those movies that I'm not sure I want to watch it again.
Right.
But I enjoyed it so much the first time that it gets a high score for me.
And it's only a couple hours long.
Right.
So we're not talking about
the
Lord of the Rings trilogy where you're just like, "Oh God, how many times is this guy going to have to massage this old guy's calves and get like the flaky skin off and, it's disgusting."
Yeah. There's definitely some uncomfortable moments in this movie, but it's worth watching.
Yeah. If you are interested in not mindless, uplifting drivel brought to you inexplicably by the director of Trainspotting, then yeah, check it out.
Yeah. So recommend, listener.
Definite recommend.
Yes. So I think that's about it for the podcast for this episode. We hope that you're downloading it in multiple places in India right now and listening, wherever you are in India listening to it. We hope you're enjoying it because we enjoyed watching the movie about your culture.
We did.
Yes. So for another episode of the podcast, I'm not Coco.
And I'm not Dodds.